Okay, Fambulem, good evening to everybody. 2020, Happy New Year to all. We just come off the back of a very successful then and now event where we celebrate the second year anniversary. A very, very powerful event, well attended. And by His grace, we are doing well and we will get there, but we can only get there together. So today, now we first production. We've been away for a while, but we've been working on certain materials then and preparing for the new year. And we event will be come up where we don't celebrate on the 28th. And it was a blast. And I want to say thank you to all those who made it possible for it to be a success. Despite, the apprehensions and you name it. They want them, we wish us differently. But they will have seen because they're watching. Anyway, today, as soon as I can see the title, we want to begin with this 2020 in January. We call on 2019 in retrospect. In other words, we are looking back at the year 2019, which was a wonderful year in many respects, but like every year, all things get in your up and down, in your positives and negatives. Today, we want to talk about 2019 in retrospect. In context, now the country, Sierra Leone, with real timeline beginning from January. I'd expect one or two people for join me. And if anybody is interested in having a conversation so we can talk about 2019, the year in retrospect, I am more than welcoming to potential guests. For begin with, 2019 in January, I want to start off with the FCC, with the Freetown City Council. Knowing fully well the way how the city itself was very, very filthy. Very filthy, a filthy place. It just to entertain more sickness for people. So when government, in collaboration with the city council, decides say we need to do something for keep the city healthy, so that we people can be healthy, which will cut down on many, many problems, including economic ones where the country they struggle with, then that is a good initiative. Because if the people are not kept healthy, it's obvious that there's going to be problems of illness, where eventually go cost government plenty money for mend them people and they. So Freetown City Council took steps for combat the problem of waste disposal. Remember, we all know people can just get out and waste and just go and come and hibana do or hibana gutter. All them one and they get consequences. As a result, gutter and then they flow the way out and supposed for flow, and it cause blockage when flow, and other things that were supposed for pass through the sewage. Now make them call and gutter, for let things then flow and go end up now some sewage. But because they go, they overflow and come and affect people, the general public. So there is a problem. Okay, somebody is asking for invite. Of course, I'm looking forward to this. And I want to welcome Marvel Samuela Davis. Seems like a first timer, and Julia Rogers. Welcome to the program, you both. Let me see whether I can get somebody for co-host this program. And remember, anybody want to make contribution is quite open. Let me see whether I can find. Let me invite this man. All right. So I've sent you an invite. Let's see whether that's going to work, because the application seems a little bit different. Yeah, so the FCC, the Freetown City Council, took steps for rectify them kind of things, then the way people they take the waste from inside and compound and etc. and just can't dump and do. So even though they want and they still get repercussion on the very people where they go and come, but waiting people they toy around with, now waiting be available, and the city council they get an obligation for waste disposal, but for a long time, it wasn't properly managed. So one give hats off to the Freetown City Mayor, Sister Yvonne Akisoya, a very, very solid. When I say solid, I mean solid woman. We get ideas, very innovative in bringing the city up to speed, so that we city go compete with any other city. So she's been doing quite well. It bring collection bins. Will be quite necessary. We are dotted all over the place. So when you bring the dirty come, instead of you just drop them carelessly or anywhere, you get place outside you go put them inside the collection bin then they. And once you put them inside the collection bin then they, the council get a responsibility for can take them. So all man get responsibility is a kind of a social contract where you beat what you supposed to do. Myself know me own beat what I supposed to do. Together we both do what we supposed to do and expect the best. And then we all benefit out of it. So this is the way it did work. So kudos to Madam Akisoya that back in January of 2019, this na the thing the way he initiated, if you can remember them, disposal bin them, okay? Garbage collection from houses that then begin for take, and then take them to some transit points, and then from there, Freetown City Council push them to a point usai, finally then they go heap them dirty there. We want to move on to something else about inside the same January period, $17 million we go towards a global partnership for education called GPE for short, was launched by President Madabio. This was a grant program we aim for increase equitable access to education and for also improve learning outcomes for approximately 1 million girls and boys. A laudable initiative in public, pre and private primary schools, with a focus, not just for just everybody, of course, it being a priority. The one that we need the most, where we go say the vulnerables. So that have been the GPE program, where been worth something like 17 million. That's back in January. Sometimes we quick for forget these things, but these things surely happen. Super, I think you go get for send me an invite because I've done it already. I don't know why. The application does look different. So maybe that's the reason why, but I've sent you an invitation. And if it's not working, then probably you go get for come out and come in again because it's grayed up. So 1.7 million, I say 17. We'll get for be careful with figures. One mistake, adjust your decimal point, you will be calling a very, very wrong figure and you will be held accountable. So $1.7 million Global Partnership for Education, for short known as GPE, was launched by the president back in January. And this program was a grant program which was meant to increase equitable access to education, improve learning outcomes for approximately 1 million boys and girls, focus specifically on the most vulnerable in we society. Okay. At the same time, 14 teaching services were commissioned for district officers. We must commend that kind of laudable project by Global Partnership. We make them funds and they're available. We obviously benefit the people of the country. Sometime in January as well, if we all can remember, these were breaking stories. I mean, there was so much way happened throughout the year 2019. Of course, say we're not able to talk about all of it, but we definitely will be talking about some of it, especially the breaking news. And one of them was the All People's Congress said that it will not cooperate. I repeat, it will not cooperate with of inquiry. All its concerns were met. If we can remember the to and fro, the draw between the government and the major opposition party, the All People's Congress, in which the party say, the All People's Congress say, we are not going to be cooperating with the COI. And that being some kind of raised eyebrows. It's like, what? What is going on? You've got a government, and then the opposition, they say, not go cooperate with the way our government want go. But sometimes when you know you're right, this is what you do. You stand your ground. And this was all about legal matters. It's not only just challenging the government because you feel like challenging the government. This wasn't the case. It was about righting the wrongs. Yes, you want to move ahead with something, it has to be right. And we see eventually how adjustments were made along the way because it wasn't clear and it had to be made clear. And who that made this pronouncement for the All People's Congress other than the powerful Secretary General for the party, Ambassador Usman Yansane, we say, under no condition is coming from the party, that the party will cooperate with the Commission of Inquiry until all its concerns are met. People and be kind of concerned again as to what these concerns are. And one thing for bear in mind, although everything that we say in here is in retrospect, was at the time that it was said, or the declaration was made by the party's Secretary General, Ambassador Yansane, it was because many things were not right. And not to the normal be they express this dissatisfaction, okay, over the instruments known as the Commission of Inquiry, away from the Commission of Inquiry. There were others as well, other political parties. So the APC was well known in this task because now been a major one and been, but other political parties were involved. Civil society organizations, or CSOs for short, were involved, including the Interreligious Council and the all political parties, for short, APA, were all involved. So whilst APC was seen by some as just trying to make trouble, when you look into the depth of the entire thing, you notice it wasn't only the APC and what the APC was saying, questioning what the COI stood for or how they were going to approach the investigations of allegedly corrupt officials. So they questioned this along with these other bodies that I've just named. What they said that the instruments establishing the Commission of Inquiry was not consistent with the provisions as made in Section 150 of the 1991 Constitution of the country, which stands supreme. So you see, waiting them, they talk legality. That's what they were talking about. So this Commission of Inquiry being seen for one bypass something when at the supreme law of the land by adjustments and acts of parliament and the rest of it, for bypass the Supreme Constitution. And the APC say, no, there is no way that this should bypass the Constitution, the 1991 Constitution. So therefore, we are going to stand our grounds. We will not cooperate until all what we've asked for, okay, which are our concerns, are met. If they are not met, we will not be cooperating. One of the things, here we been very troubling at the time was that the commissioner, okay, Mr. Ben Kaifala, he be modify and adapt and make himself exceptional from abiding by the practice which was in force in the high courts. So anything we've been get for bind them in terms of the courts of the country, including the high courts of the country, he will have been, not, part of that group of people or individual that will be called or queried. So people been concerned about this because it seemed like this was an abuse of power, and somebody had to stand up and the law had to prevail. So they said they're not going to do that until all those things are met. And waiting the commissioner been a trial for do been there in sharp contrast with the provisions of Section 150 of the Sierra Leone Constitution. The commissioner say not bound by rules, the commission as a whole will not be bounded by rules of evidence. When have been big talk during that entire program, they will remember the rules of evidence, the rules of evidence, which we did a program on that basis in both civil and criminal proceedings. The president of the republic, President Bio, then went on live air and threatened that anybody will not comply with this COI, the full weight of the law will be thrown at them. So people need for comply. And that came from the president of the republic. Okay? So as I say, many stories for 2019 throughout the many months, but just the major ones. So I want to move on to February. In February, if we can remember, we heard something about a state of emergency. It's not too long ago, but almost like long ago, because there are so many things that happen on a daily basis, on an hourly basis, on a minute basis when it comes to country and people and government, that it's hard for people and for, catch up, because you get many other things then for contemplate, for do, and the rest of it. But not too long ago, which was February, that's some 11 months ago, 12 months ago, the state of emergency was declared under the rape of sexual violence. They say there were too much. The government said that there were too much rape and violence directed at we sisters, we mama them, we auntie them. So therefore, this thing don't reach some epic proportion that, because state of emergency, members say not to small thing, and it can equally be a political tool. So if the government, they say that this concern is so grave that it get for down a state of emergency, that means this problem is really serious. But not so everybody been seeing so. Some people see this as a ploy, especially the opposition people. They see that as a ploy for silence them, for quiet them. And you also get to remember that the turmoil at the time, it been just too much questions, because governments just take over things the way they want to do, were being opposed. Some of them appear, here on pen and paper as if it was right, as if it were fair. Other people question them, say no, including this one here. And people then see and say, well, this is not tool and I want to use for no more than silence we, so that we're not go able for talk. So therefore, we go oppose this. So they did oppose them, but the president declared this violence state of emergency, where according to rape and sexual violence was on the up. And the opposition continue for protest, say, no. This not something we want to use for silence. We with the voices they will raise, especially when it comes to issues of the commission or commissions of inquiry. So we not go get the strength, the talk, the law on we side, the way how we go on for pursuit and things they are. Also in the month of February, President Julius Maada Bio received endorsement from the World Bank. And this happened during the visit by the country director for the World Bank, we represent the World Bank in 3 West African countries, which is Sierra Leone, Liberia, and I believe it's Guinea. So during that visit to President Bio, he promised he will support President Bio in effort at his new direction effort. So, obviously when they say support, the 3 countries that we represent are Ghana, Sierra Leone, and Liberia. That are the country director paying a visit to President Bio and made a commitment right there that the World Bank will support the efforts of the president in his new direction policy. Also in the month of February, according to the government, to set an example and say waiting and mean waiting and say in a fight against corruption, 2 senior ministry officials then at the information ministry were jailed for 3 years each after a court found them guilty of the misappropriation of public funds. That in the again being gain highlights in the country, but of course everything gets in negative and in positive. It get in ifs and in buts, and you get obviously people and we oppose and accept the way how things then play out. So in terms of them 2 officials there, questions were also raised that they were low-keyed, and sacrificial lambs for make a project where others saw as not viable, not working, and directed at one set of political group or region. So then use them people there for set an example. So the bottom line anyway is a court found these 2 officials of the Ministry of Information guilty of the misappropriation or embezzlement of funds meant for a different purpose to serve the ministry, the government, and the people of Sierra Leone. So therefore, after the court found them guilty, they were jailed for 3 years each. Again, in the month of February, without seeking a required 2/3 majority of the House, the Speaker of the House, who was elected, as we all know now, needless for go there again, probably we will at some point. I'm talking about Dr. Abbas Cherno Bundu. He granted parliamentary assent to the president's proposal for declare the public emergency. Remember, we talk about this public emergency, but at the same month of February, we talk about more in different days, because of course the president declare without seeking a 2/3. In other words, for let it pass and become a state of emergency for let it stand. Like I say, state of emergency, not all calo business. The state must feel really threatened, either by an act of aggression, a declaration of war from somewhere, or some kind of outbreak of an uncontrollable disease, such as we saw back when Ebola struck the nation, when government cannot really control things and had to control neighborhoods, movements, and the rest of it. And then you can invoke things like state of emergency. So when the president go on for say it a state of emergency or declare a state of emergency, because according to RAM, the rape and sexual violence against women of the country was so rampant, it don't reach this epic proportion that it warranted a state of emergency. But for let that state of emergency they pass, it has to go to parliament. So hence we see the significance on why majority in parliament can be so significant and why this brouhaha can be over Udan are the largest, because when it comes to terms of voting for things then for pass, especially things then where a ruling party might want, you to get off the line and working for the people, or one for getting policy then going, but it require parliamentary vote. Then the requirement of the greatest party or the greatest number, now they it come into play. So before this thing for stand, you need 2/3 majority in the House. Anyway, the parliamentary speaker, there are catalogues of events where they fall under Dr. Abbas Bundu in book, where they don't do, we're not they in relation or in collaboration with the way out the law say if for work. This now one, if for seek 2/3 parliamentary majority, he didn't do it, and then he give assent to the president in proposal for declare the state of public emergency. Most other people, especially the opposition, saw this as another red flag operation. We move on to March, okay? Remember some fire incidents will happen, here and then Kube and Susan Bay, and we know Usai Kube Day or waiting day Kube, waiting day Susan Bay. These are shacks. This is when you want to see poverty at its best. This is where you will go, and it's just stark clear for let you see them. And then these people happen for fall into this kind of thing will happen back in March, in which fire just rampage or run through the entire place. So you got hundreds and hundreds of citizens now not get shelter, not get home at all. And this is a difficult period, and government being definitely get for do something about this. So of course, that's government's obligation. But anyway, we international partner, this is the UK, came to the rescue of these people and provided much needed funds for help them people there, for relive their life, for build up waiting and lost on this fire incident. And this happened in Nakrube and Susan Bay back in March, lest we forget. And these people have since moved on with their lives. Thank God to the UK government for the provision, through UK aid for help these people who were mostly in need. In the same month of March, the SLPP was accused of manipulating the Sierra Leone judiciary. Let we not forget, okay? You remember where we talk about the desperation at appointing appointing is not the word, electing the Speaker of the House. 16 court injunctions. These things, they may have been of yesterday, but the consequences are reverberating to this day and will have implications long after we will have left this earth. It go did at the history book, and it go did forever. And not only in writing, but effect in the way how we go about the issue of government, of we elected officials, of we parliamentary democracy, and the rest of it. So, 16 court injunctions were slammed down on APC members. Let's not forget this. And during the time that these injunctions were slammed, remember that the All People's Congress, who had just lost elections, were the majority in the House. They may get a significant majority in the House. Immediately after that, we saw actions that were being taken, including the 16 injunctions that were slapped on these All People's Congress MPs. And in retrospect, when we do the calculations and the mathematics, we see now why. It's obvious the action was meant for reduce the majority, which then will give the other side, the winning party, the ruling party, a slight majority. So we use the word slight, although it's not necessary, because even that one day, it means majority. Whether than half, it means majority. You pass the other one by half, yeah, it means majority. Okay? No more way things can play inside the House, because you get in different parties there. This is the interesting thing, about party politics within Parliament, where, by consensus, by agreement, and the rest of it. Scratch me back, I scratch you back. You want to get this pass, I will be tabling my motion. You want to forget and pass. You support me today. And sometimes, again, if it's in the general good of the nation, although most times it's on partisan basis, because we've seen this at play many a times. But yes, in that same month of March, 16 injunctions were slapped against APC parliamentary members. And we know what will happen, because we now have the benefit of hindsight. We know what will happen subsequently in the months to come. In the month of March, the NATCOM Director General being therefore succumbed to political pressure. This is where the information boss, that Mr. Mohammed Rahman Soare, he been continue for real political pressure over the NATCOM Director General on issues pertaining to management. Mr. Soare is on record for having disregarded the Board of Commissioners. And in retrospect, again, benefit of hindsight, because we're retrospecting here today, we know what the Board of Members were composed of, and Uda Nabindibra among the Board of Members then. It's no longer the same. But we could clearly see or see from here that we see while these machinations, were ongoing, while there was disregard for company rules, for companies' policies, for the approach and dispensation of the ethics way supposed for reign. Now then kind places then they are hard and supposed for conduct themselves. Okay? That has become different now, because the structure is no longer the same. But we want to make people and for recall that back in 2019 of March, the Director General being therefore succumbed to political pressure, because the boss for the Information Ministry, Mr. Mohammed Rahman Soare, continue for pressure this DG over the management, issues, where not to be in business per se, according to the way how the things were run, because the NATCOM get a board of commissioners when they can normally deal with the issues there. But these were some of the political wranglings and ongoings. And like I say, Dr. Prince Harding, we all know the story by now, so we will leave that to that. Again, in the month of March, a military officer was shot dead, remember, by his own bodyguard, allegedly over deployment, because this man, according to what we were told, I try to get to the bottom of this story, but I still can't get the heads or tail other than what is officially out there, which is the man in bodyguard, this soldier man in bodyguard, now in shoot him and kill him. Why? Because he was redeployed. Why? Because the place suicide and redeploy him, it has no tips at all. I find it difficult to see any substance from this story, what we were told then. But of course, that's what we were told. And we take them at that. That's what we were told. So we move on to the month of April. We not will ever forget, me in particular, the veteran broadcaster, Mr. Jipu Felix George. A man where na be a towering pillar during the glorious and he days of the national broadcaster, Sierra Leone Broadcasting Services, the voice of Jipu Felix George coming on live, his commentary them during football matches. This is what I remember most. So we lost him back in April, and we know say in contribution to the growth of the nation, especially in that in field of communication and broadcasting, will never be forgotten. And we, in we own week way here now, then and now, along with everybody else who is watching this program, I have no doubt that we pray that his soul may rest in perfect peace, and may Allah grant him Jannah and forgive in sins. We also noticed that within the month of April, we understand that the gap in basic living it continue for widen. Of course, because of economic problems, serious economic problems, we been plague the nation. So much so that the government itself has accepted and continue to accept now. We'll come to the president in New Year's message, where we'll talk about briefly, and continue to accept now that indeed there are difficulties on the ground. There were denials at first, and then the blame game of well, it's the predecessors that left the country in this state. So therefore, the problem is not ours, it's theirs. But you are in control now effectively. So the problem is yours. You inherited the problem. You can't just inherit the good and then the bad. You want to sideline it and say, no, I'm not responsible. It doesn't really work that way. Okay? So we now know from statistics from World Bank, the IMF, then that there's a growing number of people who are supposed to be escaping from poverty, but are not because of the way how things are going. And that is captured in the president's New Year's speech, in which, of course, he accepted certain responsibilities and the way things are going and the rest of it. And this is a demonstration of why people are going, hungry, and why people are feeling unwell, sick, diseases are on the up, new inequalities are on the rise, and education, which is the president's cornerstone policy, which is his flagship program, which I must commend him for, the free education, because I think it is a very brilliant, good initiative, which when working will only benefit not anyone else but the general public, which indeed the country will reap the benefits, because an educated man is a sound mind, and the sound mind goes on, to promote its country or take the country to a new height. But unfortunately, there are difficulties around the program. We saw what happened with teachers, being paraded, which we will come to shortly. And this was a sign of desperation by calculation, because of things that are meant to happen to forge the president's flagship program forward. And by virtue of what has been invested, we know it's going to be over a period of time. But when the time is calculated, as per now, the project should be far ahead, but it's not. It's a bit slow. However, it's a good initiative. And the president has focused massively on the effect of technology and climate crisis. So we obviously have to commend the president absolutely, for these kind of initiative. And it shouldn't be said lightly at all. That what the president embarked on is a good thing in itself. It's a good thing. So I've got paperwork here that I'm looking at while doing this broadcast. That's why I'm off screen and on screen. Off screen and on screen. So we now take a look at the month of May, in which we all know the wonders in the country regarding something which is not or does not appear to be normal in our country in a good way. This is the participation of women in our society. It's been on the up for a number of years now, but in certain respect or certain discipline, we know they see we woman them, or we know they expect to woman them for Didi, and when they Didi, it's a wow, wonderful. And one of such person is the FIFA boss, we happen for be Aisha Johansson. But members say during the period it been docked with so many kind of things, like fighting with people, or people fighting against her, because there was this general perception where things say this is a male dominated area and you bring get other people them way, because now it's a covetous position, an envious position, and here it is occupied by a woman in a male dominated society. So that alone was worrying for some men, and I'm sure they wanted to get her out. And many charges were brought against her, including one of corruption, where eventually can involve the ACC. The ACC was definitely involved, and one of the prime time involvement again inside this Aisha Johansson case was that of the chief minister. There was a to and fro, and the chief minister is a very powerful man, and once he got involved, we knew that this case, was of high priority, high value, and then the ACC boss himself was involved. And even though, and this is the interesting thing, that the High Court acquits the woman of corrupt charges that were brought against her. I don't know what was the obsession with the ACC and Aisha Johansson and the chief minister's involvement with the FIFA boss, Aisha, but they say, and this is not the ACC now, that then go reject the High Court in decision for acquit, and then go appeal that decision the way the High Court make for acquit Aisha Johansson. And one get for wonder what else is behind the story. But this story will go on and on and on. Okay, it will go on and on and on. So after a while, say Aisha Johansson, a very powerful woman, say it will prevail. Absolutely. We did not say it will prevail. Why? Because instead get very powerful friends out there. Very, very powerful friends. I mean, we are talking about FIFA. We'll talk about FIFA. Yeah? So we're just talking about April, and we'll go brush the quickly and move on to, we went on to May, and let's look at June. So in June, we can see, say, land grabbing reach an epic proportion of the country. If I'm not mistaken, either we all liar, or the vast majority. I mean, we're looking at the proportion of the way how this thing became a national phenomenon, land grabbing. Different ploy for take land away from people, sell land to people, resell land to people. So much so that it reached the ears of the president, because certain people got duped who could walk the corridors of power, who had access to Mr. President. So they were able to bring this, and something certainly was done. I remember I was in Freetown, and I realized I visited one or two offices and realized they not set up squad and all now. Certain police stations, major police stations, they may get special teams then they for deal with issues of land. And I wish that has continued, because I haven't followed that story yet, but it was so massive, and that was a well-crafted situation, and I hope it not to be deep no more for frying pan, because we not can sustain things. It's not sustainable the way we can carry a budget, over a period of time and the rest of it. But it was a good thing, because that helped for alleviate the suffering of many people regarding the duping, money we pass on them, we make people and lost them property them, then rightful property them, we them buy them, money them, we them spend. So the president being here for Rob Mott Day, Parliament being here for Rob Mott Day, police became active, special squads were set up, special offices in major police stations. This is something I know because I did follow the story. So that being here for help for us reach some of the problem then we be regarding land issue. So in July, another big story we happened was remember the president went AWOL. Obviously, it became of major concern to many people. Many people. And I say many people because I could not say all. Because while some people were naturally concerned about the whereabouts of their president, others were making a political issue out of it or blaming the other side simply for asking, where is our president? But the issue surrounding the president's absence was really badly managed. And we had a program then. We said so. We make no apologies what happened then, what we said then. Because, I mean, we feel vindicated by time. In retrospect now, we saw what we did, what we said, and we knew how right we were. The president was missing. The procedures were not followed. And the president could have easily, disappeared for a day or two. But that's where you have powerful media team, who can manage this kind of processes, who knows what kind of bulletin to put out there. But the team was awful, and that called for the immediate sacking or reshuffling of those people who were responsible for such a blatant disregard for the taxpayer, the people who the president does work for. And how dare those who question the people to ask where is the president wanted to blame them for simply asking where is the president. Okay, that was absolutely wrong. There should have been an inquiry into that. The president on return should have taken some actions. But in our society, it's like these things will pass. I'm sure these people make some calculations and it's like these things will pass. We know this is the heat of the moment. It will pass and we'll survive this and we'll move on again. Yes, largely this is the case, what it is, but we do also have international friends who are watching us. And these things are not compatible with governments or a government who is making a pronouncement of being open, transparent, and accountable, and who is using a platform to call for investment into the country. Because surely when a government is missing by virtue of its head not being available, and there's question all over social media, and the world in general was fully aware, because there were lots of people, foreign friends, both in Africa and beyond, Europe, the Americas, Australia, who made tapes. So the whole world was aware. And imagine that investors, potential investors, hearing about this debacle, will be wondering, what sort of nation is this? So whilst we were taking it for granted, or officials around the president or the government were taking this for granted, it's like, oh, these people again. Can you imagine, what sort of story these people, potential investors, our foreign friends, because this must be strange to them that a president can't just disappear and its people does not know where their president is. Is that a place that I would be heading to, packing my bags to head to? Is that a place I would like to put my money, to invest my money? I don't think that was healthy. A lot of people, the vast majority of people, don't feel that was healthy. That was a setback for our country. Whatever happened to the president then, I mean, there were rumors he wasn't well, he was sick. Of course, he could have sought treatment, and before the story could come out, there should have been a plan A, a plan B, something that should have been told to the people just to keep it going until the president can reappear, instead of leaving a blank space in which others, could thrive and make a fortune out of. So eventually the president did turn up. But when he turned up, that was over 7 days later. Imagine, a whopping 7 days. That's when the president... Then we asked the question, what is going on? What really is going on? Because we demanded to know. And we had to know. I just want to cross back again. July. I just want to cross back again quickly to June, because there was also a significant story in June. We cannot jump over that. Remember back in June, the president of the Republic of Sierra Leone, President Bio Binde na London, where he attend one investment conference. Remember fully well, because there were demonstrations, because that happened shortly after the May 31st Red Friday na APC, All People's Congress, then Party HQ. Let us not forget. I didn't want to bring that again because that's a sore part in we history, in we political history, and that kind of, there are many things that have changed the landscape over, the last few years. That surely was, and this make the opposition party, here for double down, saying that whatever they go on, this must be a witch hunt, and we've been targeted politically, we've been intimidated, and there was a lockdown on the party political office. The police, they use brute and sheer force, disproportionate force against an unarmed people where you don't corner already. There was also a program that we made. So coming off fresh off that, the president came to London for a conference, investment conference, and that investment conference did not go well at all. We must say that, because of course you will see what it yield, whether not in the short term or in the long term. But no, because then demonstrators and the women in the street, people and try to make the calculation based on numbers. Yes, numbers, does tell a huge story, but graphics tell a more powerful story than numbers. The fact that demonstrators or protesters, if you like, protesters were out there showing placards in which, women were being brutalized or were brutalized. Our mothers, our sisters, half naked, women with their breasts out because they had to show injuries that they sustained. And the other parties, gone into overdrive, trying to mechanize some sort of propaganda against people who were brutally manhandled, whom we saw brutally manhandled, and trying to tell another story was just quite telling in how divisive the society was becoming. That your fellow sister, your fellow brother, despite the difference between the party that we cannot affiliate with, but they are being brutalized, and then you cannot stand up and say, that wasn't, called for. There's another way that we could have done it, or the police been too heavy-handed. How much does it take, to say that? Would you want for let them eliminate your brother or your sister simply because you stand on the cusp of a party difference? I thought somehow we are all united under the flag, green, white, and blue. And together we stand. You are one, but your one represents the many. So we are all in this together. So yes, you support the other side, I support the other side, but somehow there is a common denominator. And there's somewhere where we can say, no, this is the line. We cannot cross the line. And what happened then was absolutely wrong. It been distasteful, to the public view, to the public eye, and we international friends. And this come back on the back of people that are calling for investors to come into the country. Tell me, who's going to be packing their bags and heading that direction? No. And remember, you get the foreign offices, them abroad, the UK Foreign Office, where people and they look up to, the United States State Department, where people and they look up to, Canada, Australia, Germany, France, and many other Western, powerful countries, where all they need for doing for change the notation at the website involving travel advice. And that affects us badly. And what we need for remember is, once these things go down in our name, in terms of travel advice, do not travel to this West African Republic, or be careful, blah, 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 blah. These are not things, that are erased automatically. It takes a while for let you build that confidence again, for let them begin stepping down, because not to want a step down, gradually, because you therefore convince them over a period of time. Over that period of time, and this is the reason why we need for avoiding things there. Over that period of time, we could have made significant roads to investment or encouraging investors into the country. But because of what happened and serving as a distraction for investors, and over the period where the Western nations, them way potential, they talk about sober investors, not to them lie investor them, where therefore don't come, it take a while. 6 months, 9 months, 12 months. And that's a significant chunk of a government's term in office. You've got 5 years, 1 year gone. And then you get for begin build that again, 2 years gone. And remember, say, not the only thing down the way you focus on, but it's so significant in terms of investment, because direct, indirect investment helps your country growth. I guess a good talk with one of me friend them, one of we hangout place. They tell me about the growth of the economy by 5.1%. They talk about projection, where they tell me, say, it grow. Seriously, we know say the economy slowed down back in 2018. I think you been get 3.8% where they been anticipate say if for grow. But you look at the physical things, a way for make the economy grow, which is mining and export, revenue generation, the direct investment, indirect investment, and the rest of it. None of this is happening. And the small money what they get, we don't inflate them so much. We need to talk about the currency depreciation. We need to talk about the double-digit inflation. But even the small one, what they get, what they talk about, say, revenue generation, they on the up. Yet we find a way, which is good because government they operate on profit. But my wage bill don't skyrocket up. I mean, they talk about fiscal discipline. Fiscal discipline not seem for be the order of the day, because now we will talk shortly about the Auditor General in paperwork we come on do, what we call the report, in which there is a big black hole, 141 billion unaccounted for. Okay? So as a consequence of that, the president visit here in June, around the 8th, I believe, or early June, I go call him. And at the invitation of a member of the UK government, a section of the UK government, okay, than at the investment side of things, for hold an investment conference, because one big investor been a sponsor an investment conference. We've been good, in terms of for the optics, in terms of propaganda. That was good. But then these protesters then spoiled the day. We may not accept it now, what they talk about within government circles, but they know the truth. And this is not something I was calling for, because obviously thing will go better with country, and I cannot broadcast that at all. Thing will go better with country. We for all pray for them, let it happen. But of course, them protested and they then placard and they wait and hold. And the young man we speak at the time, well spoken, very articulate, and to the point. He be very calm. And this is not the thing, because issues like that, what they expect is nose flailing, finger wagging, and all the furrows then on your forehead, and feeling agitated and the rest of. No, he was calm, cool, and collected, and he made his point. And everybody, social media, major media outlets, where I am, being get calls for letting look into the matter and begin to understand exactly what happened. But anyway, having said that, there was also an highlight of the visit of the president, retired Brigadier His Excellency Julius Maada Bio, during his visit, because at that time, the Queen been celebrate in birthday. And it's no mean feat for let the Queen invite you, so you go sit down ringside. And they talk about first side. Who say ringside, I mean you get seat, look the ring, boxing ring, now the terminology come up from. Now they is sit down with the Prime Minister then, Theresa May, and watch the proceedings, where then the change guard or the march past they take place of the soldier man them, where now the Queen in guard them. There was also another downside during that term day where the president there was plenty of disappointment. We give way to conspiracy theory. Boku. The president been planned for meet in cities in them. Of course, it was part of the planned itinerary. And the president been there for cancel in planned itinerary in terms of meeting its citizens, where they been on dubbed town hall meeting. And they been there for cancel them. Why? Again, this is also I blame the media team, or the one that were responsible for the president in media optics and bulletins the way they put out there. I mean, they're not savvy at all. Let's call a spade a spade. Let's call a spade a spade. If you get for cook propaganda, you get for cook them very well. You already understand, because most people know the prevailing circumstances not being right for let the president, hold that town hall meeting. Not me say it can't hold them, but the idea protesters will have been there. They will have made some rudeness, shouted down. They are shouting down the president. And if the president may want to go ahead, of course, if me go ahead, because security for they both from Her Majesty's government and your local security them, and your supporters them. But for avoid the toxic mix, so yes, the president could have called off that meeting. But the bulletin put out there for say why the president, call off the meeting is unbelievable. Let me be honest. I'm beginning to remember now, say, they say, the president before he come, they don't plan their meeting there a long time ago. When president they travel or they go by meeting them, once in a while, short term, which is hard because you get for plan detail, not to calo business, protocol detail, especially with the queen, they come in birthday, all them foreign guests them, security detail for you and the other people also you get for the order you come with. So not a small planning. Sometimes these things, can take 12 months, 9 months, 6 months. So now they can't tell we say, like say, the thing where they make we for understand, now when the president come, now automatically they invite and Theresa May invite and for go attend the queen in birthday. Imagine that kind story then day. Imagine that kind story then day. How you know go get conspiracy on the rise? This is terrible. Yet he continue for keep them. I don't know why, and they continue for make a mess. It's a real mess. Because hardly people will believe that kind of story then day. So when you come, when you meet Theresa May, and Theresa May ask President Bio, but say the queen in bad day, yeah, you go like for attend. Oh yes, why not? Okay, I put your name down, or when I put your name down in the attend. Now the kind hush story, now in the kind of serve to we as to why the president being for call off the town hall meeting. That's making a mockery out of you people them. Not to the president, I mean the one the way they provide an excuse then they in behalf of the president. That means we're not taking our people them, kind of seriously. Because we understand the security ramifications at the time because of waiting be happening at APC headquarters, because the APC being prepared for protest. And then show down they out there on the street. Though low numbers, but the placards, did say it all. So probably the hall will have drawn the largest crowd. So yes, there are reasons. But you're not able to give the people a sound reason. I think I'm dwelling on this too much, but that was a highlight during June. And then we talk about the ACC obsession with Aisha Johansson, and we talk about how the president go away back in July. We all remember in July, that'll be big story down there. And it took a while, It took a while. It went on for a while. Back in July, millions, another big story, if you remember this, millions of dollars was paid out to former government officials. This include the former president, Ernest Bai Koroma, and other government officials, which were in lieu that the end of year benefit and gratuities. The reason why this became a big story as well, obviously, everything else, there's much ado, much talk about issues around that. The political atmosphere then being very toxic, and the back and forth between both parties them be reach an epoch moment that it been very serious. That every little thing, it was sort of tension. You can feel the tension at the air. Every little thing at the time, the tension. Sometimes you could basically cut inside the tension. It's so stiff, and people they anticipate or they advocate something sinister go happen. Unfortunately, it did not, and thank God. So arguments about whether these people should be paid their pension and grant. I don't know why it even became an argument or debate. But in Sierra Leone now, anything goes. So a person don't work. For all the years in the way you don't work, by law, and this not to Babati business, by law, we are talking about your entitlement. For go on for deny your entitlement is in itself an abuse of power or an abuse of the law, and you can be taken, to court for that, and counter charges can be made. So I'm not going to work all the years there and are entitled and not cause no problem, or even if I cause problem, you can't deny me wait here be no work. That in itself is an abuse of my human right. Well, of course, everything became the center of an argument that the president, blah, 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 because of embezzlement, the ex-president embezzlement and corruption and COI and the rest of it. So therefore, but thank God the president now, President Bio, saw that these people, of course, will have to be paid. Because The same thing will be expected at some point. President Bio is going to be retired. He's going to be ex-president at some point, and will expect things to be done to him, just as others were expecting things to be done to them. So if you've done whatever to someone else, that's what will befall you. So that's why you need to be careful, and you need to act in consonant with the law. So anyway, these people, their money were paid to them. We know say it be amount to something like 68 billion plus that were owed every one of them. And the president commit for pay. And as we talk, I don't know whether the other half has been paid, but half of the money was paid, which was 33 point some more billion was paid out to them. And that quieting the situation down. You know, everything, once the president gets involved, it sort of dampen things down. But when the president not get involved, it's all for it. Everybody, they can talk the own and the rest of it. Only when the president speaks, you know, yeah, then suddenly everybody sees that there is a right. So the president becomes the most powerful person, you know, we wield so much power. And sometimes this power way one person can wield can be the Achilles heel now the country, for the people, for the government as a whole. Anyway, this money managed for pay. At the time, there was mounting tensions in the country. The security detail of the former president, remember, was withdrawn at some point. That also became an argument. The president, you know, yeah, the ex-president, of course, was naturally upset by the way he was being treated. Because if me get me bodyguard them, you get for day in consultation with me as a mark of respect when you go and do them things then they. Of course, it's an obligation on the part of government as stipulated by law. So not to favor you, they do me as stipulated by law. It has to be done. As a mark of respect, there has to be consultation with me where they provide the security for. Because I will therefore update you as well, you know, yeah, on how I feel with UDA and the rest of it, so that you know how to go forward. But none of this was done. And we get the benefit of hindsight again. We know why none of this was done. Because again of the state of heightened tension between both sides. The heightened tension between both sides. I mean, these were scary times. Anyway, as we look now, we're happy that we did at this point, because at some point, the president not being a security detail that was provided by the state, which was really bad